Thanks for joining us today for this Influence Women's webinar. We know that you have lots of things in your schedule and your time is valuable, and so we're always honored when you can join us. We hope that you will encourage others to come along and join us. You can get all the information about the upcoming events and webinars on the website at influencewomen.org. Join us on social media as well and stay connected. We'll see you next time for the next Influence Women's webinar. Well, hi, everybody. Kathleen Cook with Influence Women. I'm so excited to have all of you with us tonight for this amazing, great evening we're having with Kirstin Leigh. It's great to see all of you and your smiling faces. Just as a reminder again, please make sure you've muted your audio, and we will open it up for questions at the end of the evening and the session. So I just want to remind you a little bit about Influence Women. We are a professional organization focused on women working in media, entertainment, arts, music, arts, music, and leadership. I'll get it all out tonight. We want women to thrive, to flourish in the industry, and we want content and artistic endeavors produced that have a biblical background that can change our culture and change our media that we're seeing in our screens tonight. Now, as whole women wanting to work in the industry, we know that we have lots of different things coming at us that affect our careers. And tonight we have a special workshop that is going to help us, I believe, overcome some of the past traumas and difficulties we may have had in our past, how to change your story. And Kirstin is an expert on this. She'll be sharing that with us in just a moment, so stay tuned. I'd like to remind you, too, to follow
Bryson, Junior, get Andres.
Thank you for muting yourself again, ladies. Appreciate that. I would like all of you to remember to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us on our website at influencewomen.org. And also make sure that you're telling your friends. We have a wonderful podcast that comes out every month. So when you become a member, you get our journal every week, which has great articles in it, great information, as well as information about our podcast that month that you can join. Please listen to our podcast, watch it, comment on it. We love your comments. We want to hear that from you. So please comment on our podcast. That helps our algorithms, actually. It helps us get our voice out there bigger. So make a comment, watch it all the way to the end. And we know that the women coming on to share and produce and to bring their special wisdom and information to us on our podcast are going to help you with your career and lives. And we're excited to have each and every one of them. Also, don't forget that we are a nonprofit, and we do rely upon your lovely donations and sponsorships. So if God puts that on your heart tonight, we would love to have you help sponsor events like this online. This is a free event tonight. It's not costing you anything. But if you'd like to go on afterwards to influencewomen.org and hit the donation button, sponsor a little bit of money for us tonight to cover these costs of producing these types of sessions and the ongoing events and things that we are doing within our organizations, we would deeply and gratefully appreciate it. And we know that what you give will come back to you in generous amounts from our Father up above. Now, we don't want to take too much time more to get into before we can get into speaking with Kirstin tonight. So before further ado, so to speak, I am just reminding you one more time to make sure your audio is muted. If you want your face on camera, it will be there. If you do not want your face to be shown, then please mute your video as well. We will have some question and answer time at the end of this session tonight. Kirstin, thank you so much for joining us tonight for Influence Women, Change Your Story webinar. We are thrilled to have you. And I know I want to have you tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know you've you've worked in the industry for a long time, but you're also an expert in recovery. You're an expert in your field as a life coach on helping women break through and get to the other side and get over some of the issues that prevent us sometimes from success and from a career that can really truly flourish. So, Kirstin, tell us, just to start out with, a little bit about your background, your journey, and we are thrilled again once more to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. Thank you for having me. And thank all of you for being here. And she introduced me so well. I want to do a disclaimer. I don't think we're all going to change our lives or change our whole stories tonight in this 45 minutes. But hopefully I will be able to share some tangible tools that you can pray about, consider, and that'll be a good beginning. So the Change Your Story workshop, it is a faith-based, scientifically sound, and holistic program that empowers you to break free from whatever's breaking you and discover how purpose is the key to breakthrough. Basically, it's what I needed when my life needed a major rewrite. I'm originally from this tiny town in Kentucky. I never fit in, was constantly bullied, had some very turbulent relationships with authority figures. And as a teenager, I developed an eating disorder that I managed to keep secret. But despite all that, I had big dreams. I was going to be a singer and an actress. I practiced all the time. I got a job when I was 12 because you can do that in Kentucky, at least at that time. And I saved my money and I moved to New York City when I was barely 18 years old. And I was ready to conquer the world. And I did some really cool and courageous things. But I had this backstory that was following me. It's true that we have to move forward despite what's in the way. But we also have to deal to heal. And I never did that. I just kept on going. If you would have told me that right when my music career, acting career was getting ready to take off, that I would take off, that I would run away from everything that I had ever wanted and dreamed of and believed in, I would have told you that you were crazy, and I would have been wrong. Alcohol had never been a problem for me, but it became a habit. And when life happened, and we don't have time to go into all of the life, but you can get the book for that. When life happened, all of the pain that I had never processed, all of the backstory, well, that habit became an addiction that stole years of my life. That's the thing about habits. They're not a problem until they are. But, habits are easy to abuse when things start happening to you. I didn't do anything I wasn't already doing. I just kept on doing more and more and more of it. So that habit became an addiction that stole years of my life, as in I drank 20 beers a day for over a decade. And not many people knew, and the ones that knew there was a problem didn't know it was that big a problem. I almost died 3 times of alcohol poisoning, but I kept drinking. I knew I wasn't going to make it much longer. And so I had made a promise to God that I would do whatever he said. If you would just save me and use me. And I say use me because I had bought into the lie that I was too far gone. I was too messed up. I had messed up all of God's plans. I did mess up a lot of things, granted. But God can, if we give everything to him, if we surrender everything to him, he can turn it around and use it for his good. Well, God gave me a dream in the midst of my mess. It was the catalyst of my breakthrough. He was saying, you're the most positive person. The plans I have for you are wilder than your imagination, but you've got to stop what you're doing. I can use you, so I can work through you. Over and over, God was saying this. And when I woke up, I knew God was speaking to me, but I was like, why would he say I was positive? I was a mess. I was depressed. I had a 24-ounce beer beside my bed. And I realized that God was talking to the real me, the me buried beneath that mess. And, God's been speaking to you too. It's why you're here right now. God is saying, hey, I got some great plans for you and you're doing awesome, but there's maybe a few things we want to just like tweak a little bit, maybe, you know, some tweaks are more than other tweaks. I don't know your story. But anyway, so that was the catalyst. I would like to say I stopped drinking right then, but that's not my story. But it did set me on a journey. For the next 2 years, I mean, it was just me and God. All I did was study the work of world-renowned psychologists, neuroscientists, the world's best thought leaders, the best pastors. I would go to church twice a week. I would listen to 5 sermons a week, you know, taking notes like crazy. And I would ask myself question after question. You ask enough questions, you get to some root of some issues. My acting background also proved to be a tremendous asset. You know, I broke down my life like an actor breaks down a scene. And I would sleep with headphones on, blaring praise music in my ears. This was to counteract all of the lies that I had been listening to. See, we can listen to the enemy's lies for so long that we don't recognize them as the enemies. We just think they're ours. It's our voice. It's our thoughts that are telling us these things. And that's not the case. So I didn't realize it, but everything I was doing in this 2-year process was rewiring my brain. And during this time, God delivered me. And that's a story in itself. A couple of weeks after my breakthrough, God gave me another dream. And I was writing down all these revelations and this insight and this divine wisdom, you know, for hours. And when I got done, I'm like, God, are you wanting me to create a new type of recovery, like personal development program? And I felt him say, not today. I was like, great, I can barely walk. But that was 13 years ago. So the Change Your Story workshop, which I founded 5 years ago, is a very strategic conglomeration of everything I studied in those 2 years, along with the dream God gave me. And it is changing lives. God is doing amazing, amazing things. And it's a gift to be able to witness that, to be a part of that.
Wow, what a story, Kirstin. Thank you so much.
That's the 2-minute version.
I know you have much more, and we would love to read more about it. Tell us the title of your book and where we can find that.
Oh, thank you. I have a couple. One's called Change Your Story, and that has a little bit of my bio, but mainly it's for everybody else. I share as little as I can. Some people know I'm not some motivational speaker. You know, I know what I'm talking about. I know firsthand what I'm talking about, and I know from all the work that I've done, you know, studying this work. So you can get that. But the Change Your Story workbook, it goes along with the workshop. So it's designed to go along with that. So you get that for free if you join the workshop.
Great information to have right off the top. And I would encourage women, as we continue to talk about this, if this resonates with you, please do grab a copy of Kirstin's book and her workshop pamphlet.
We started a new workshop on Saturday, actually. It's a 9-week workshop. We'll talk more about that later.
Great. Well, Kirstin, a couple of things resonated with me as you spoke. One was your dream to reality. You know, often we do get bogged down with life. We do get bogged down in our careers and in our passionate attempts to go where God's called us to go, or where we think He's called us to go. And how that can take a right turn sometimes because of some of the choices that we make in our lives. And so I know you're wanting to share with us a little bit about your recovery program. What's curious to me is that you discovered a different type of approach to recovery.
Yes.
We all know that AA is a great recovery program. Many churches and organizations have dealt with substance abuse and have great programs as well. What makes your program different? Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely, and thank you for asking. Well, like I said, it is a faith-based program, obviously, but it also shares many of the same characteristics of SMART recovery. If you've ever heard of that, It absolutely encourages taking personal responsibility for our actions, and it doesn't promote living life in recovery mode. The Change Your Story workshop, it equips you with the tools that it takes to live in the freedom that God provides. We don't take on labels at all. We never say we're powerless over anything, because 2 Timothy verse 7 said, God says, I did not give you a spirit of fear. I gave you a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind. Science has proven that we can literally rewire our brains, which goes right along with what God has said since the beginning of time. We are transformed by the renewing of our mind. The once an addict, always an addict, or, oh, it's just in my family, it's always been this way, it always will be this way. It is biblically nor scientifically true. With God and a lot of work, I want to stress the work here, we can change our story. We can get our life on track with God's plan, but we have to believe it and we have to fight for it. So many times we try to fix the behavior. And while we can do that for a while, if we just stop that behavior, the reason why that thing became a problem is going to find some area of our life to rule and reign in. And that's not what changing your story is about. The reason I went on that 2-year journey is because a part of me knew that I could stop drinking. I know it sounds crazy, but I did know that. But what I did not know is if I could deal with all of the reasons why I felt the need to drink so much in the first place. And it wasn't one thing, Kathleen, it was so many different things. And so that's why I went on that journey, was reading about everything. We have to get to the root issue of our issues, whether it is spending too much money, whether it is emotional eating, whether it's shopping, whether it's sex, whatever it is, we have to get to those roots. Like alcohol had become a problem, a big one, but it wasn't the real problem. The real problem was all of the underlying things. So I say that, the Change Your Story workshop is faith-based, it is scientifically sound, and it is holistic. We deal with the whole person. It frees you to be you. Not the you life has molded, but the you that God created. So I hope that answers a little bit of your question.
Absolutely. I've always believed that we are a whole person. We have a mind, a body, and a soul. And that when we negate one area of that, then we become vulnerable to what you have so beautifully shared. The enemy can come in and steal from us, and steal not only our personal life from us, but also our career, our future, all the best that God has for us. It is a body, mind, and spirit. And I love the scripture, let this mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. I believe that when your mind is set where God wants your mind to be, then your heart has a chance to grow with passion. Your mind affects your heart, and those passionate, heart-throbbing things that you want to do with your life and your personal life, your career, then your heart also then goes on to affect what you do. It affects your hands and your feet and what your choices will be from then on. And so if one of those are out of whack, then we open ourselves again to vulnerability and not being able to be that person that God is really wanting us to be and to grow for His kingdom purposes, and be the women that He's called us to be. And that's to flourish in this world that is challenging, that is still broken. We are very vulnerable to so many different challenges. So I so appreciate your vulnerability in sharing tonight. So, Kirstin, if someone wanted to be to join your organization, your workshop, I know you did say you did have one going. How might they be able to do that?
Yeah, I'll share. And I love what you said. It is so true. It's amazing. Like when God gave me this program, I thought it was going to be for mainly with people with addictions or bad habits that were becoming, a little unmanageable. And I would say about 35% of the people who enroll, that is their story. But the other percentage, it is people pleasing, perfectionism, childhood trauma, just insecurities. I said whatever is keeping you from living life to your highest potential, because God wants to use everything out for our good, but the enemy wants to use everything for his good. And everything we do, everything we say opens a door. It's like, what doors are we opening? And I also want to share one of the unique aspects also of the workshop is that I do, but we'll talk about that later. But I want to tell you about for actors, creatives, which is all about women of influence women, how we use that in the workshop. But some of the topics we jump into in the workshop, it's a 9-week program. It's all curriculum based, and it's live on Zoom, very interactive. We're all together like this, but you're not muted. And so we worked together on whatever topic it is that week. And some of the subjects we dive into are how the truth will set us free. But what is your truth? Because if you believe something to be true, whether it is or it's not, you're going to act on that belief. For example, if you believe that you need to be high to create, even if you want to stop smoking, even if you want to stop drinking, if you think it's going to help you, you're going to still do it. So we challenge the cognitive dissonance in our mind. We dive into our backstory and how it's affecting our God story. We have to identify our why. And this gives you your power back. Once you see where you've been and how it has molded you, you can choose to make different decisions. Rewiring our brain is key. Like the battlefield is in our mind. So, our thoughts come from different places. And the way our brain processes them is different. So I say there are different kind of thoughts. There are the action thoughts, things that thought that drives you crazy, but it's based on something you just did. If you hadn't done it, the thought wouldn't be driving you crazy. And then there are the memories and the what ifs and the regrets. I lived in those for so long that they kept me in bondage. So you have those. And then I call other ones thought lies, things you believed your entire life about yourself, about guys, about work, that aren't true. We can believe a lie for so long that it becomes our truth. So we take each thought through the serenity prayer. Is this something I can change? If so, how? Do I need to let go? How do I let go? How do I move forward from this? Taking every single thought through this is a game changer. I say we have to pick up the bouncer of our brain. If those thoughts get in there that aren't of God, you got to kick it out and instantly replace it with a God thought. Week 4 is about speaking life into our life. The Bible says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. I always thought this was like life and death, but it's so much more. I think I'm echoing. I think somebody Angela, you might have your mute off.
Yes. Please turn off your audio. Thank you.
Or maybe it was Joan. I see some microphones. Thank y'all. Anyway, so think about the life of a dream or the death of a dream, the life of a relationship, the death of one. It's not about denying the reality of things. We're Christians and life is hard. We go through stuff. So it's not about denying the reality of that, but it is about speaking life into it. The way we speak about our problems really, really matters because, again, life and death, power of the tongue. It's not in there for fun. It's serious stuff, which I never knew that before. Let's see. Forgiveness. Forgiveness frees us. Forgiveness is freedom, and it is a process. There are so many times I thought that I forgave someone, and I did. It's the level that I was healed. But the more we heal, there'll be another layer of that to peel off. Another topic that this is actually one of the topics that get a lot of response to this, is spiritual warfare and the role it plays in changing our story. You know, there are some amazing programs out there, but I don't know if none of them that I have looked into and researched and talked with talk about spiritual warfare. And when it comes to changing your story, making any changes, whether you're doing great in life, there's just like a few things that are in your way, or whether you're making big changes, the enemy does not want that. And so seeing how that is playing a part, it changes the way we look at things, and it changes how we fight our battles. So that's a big one. And then becoming your own hero, which does not mean heroic, but it does mean reaching down and becoming that person that God, you know, created us to. I teach everyone a 4-step formula that I actually learned in acting school that teaches you how to stop playing the role of victim and villain and becoming that hero. You know, we've all been the villain of something. I've been the victim of things that were beyond my control. And I've also been the victim of my own choices. And you can live, I call it victim valley. You can stay in victim valley for so long that you get angry and you just get bitter and you become your own worst enemy. You become your own villain, you know, self-sabotaging your greatest dreams. I did that for years. I didn't know I was self-sabotaging, but once we know these things, we can change our story. So and then how purpose is the key to breakthrough. You know, that is our week 8. Purpose is the key to breakthrough. And, you know, there are 1,000 really good books on finding your purpose. But our purpose, it's inside us. We just got to dig deep and get rid of all the junk to discover it. You know, it's always there. And like I said, you know, your life is a masterpiece waiting to be discovered. In my case, that masterpiece was under a lot of light. And the more we do the work, we unpeel, and there's that purpose, the purpose that God has for us. And the reason it's the key to breakthrough is because guess what? It's not just about us. It's bigger than us. It's the reason we are here. You know, God put us on this earth for a purpose and a plan. And we tap into that. It is bigger than everything else in life. You know, one thing I learned in acting that I share is, what is your overall objective? What do you want more than anything in life? Well, if the decision you're getting ready to make, what you want to say, is not going to lead you toward that overall objective, we don't do it. You know, take that alone. If you take nothing else, you take that alone. Ask yourself, what is your overall objective? And before you get ready to do whatever it is you're going to do, ask yourself, is this going to lead me closer to my overall objective? Or is it going to pull me farther away? And there are a lot of things that you wouldn't think mattered. Like, okay, why would it matter if I stay up to, 1 a.m. watching some TV show? It's a God show, okay? Well, nothing if you just look at that part. But what if you're supposed to be on set tomorrow? Or what if you have a meeting tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.? What if, and you're going to do that, you're not going to be prepared, you're not going to feel as great. So innocent in itself, yes. But is it going to lead you closer to your overall objective? Probably not. That kept me from opening the refrigerator at the deli in New York and getting a beer after I had stopped, and everything. I just so wanted that. And I thought, is this going to get you closer to those dreams God gave you? Or is it not? So the biggest thing to the littlest thing, take that. It matters. It'll help. And I use it every single day. That's the interesting thing is I heard this message on the 7 Habits of a Highly Successful Person years ago. And I thought, wait a minute. These are the things I did to break free from a decade of addictions and faulty mindsets. So all I never have the desire to drink anymore. That's another life. That's another person, another life ago. However, those tools, I use them every day to stay on the purpose path. I say the hardest thing I ever did was not saying goodbye to alcohol. It was on the top 10 list, but it was not the hardest thing. It was learning to not let feelings be the boss of my life. We have to understand our feelings, but they cannot be the boss. We have to be able to tell them to shut up sometimes. and taking control of our thoughts and just asking those questions, gets us in the habit of making decisions based on our objectives and not our feelings. So that is a game changer. Those three things. Feelings can't be the boss. Now you have to understand them. If you try to suppress them, you end up, well, I don't want you ever to end up where I was, but it's not healthy to suppress them. You keep on, something doesn't go right in your life, whether it's health issues, whether it is bad habits, whether it's just relationships that aren't as close as they could be. When we try to suppress things, nothing good comes of it. So yes, we have to deal to heal, but feelings can't be the boss. So anyway, is kind of an overview of the workshop. And a new one it's 9 weeks. One starts on Saturday. I'll give you the information when we're done, but you can use the promo code INFLUENCE and get a 25% discount.
Wonderful. So. Wonderful. I know that many of us on tonight will want to do that. As you speak, Kirstin, I think of your journey and your story, because this workshop is called Change Your Story. But in essence, what your past has been is still part of your story, but it's a new story. It's a different story. Was there one thing in your journey along the way that finally turned the corner for you to want to make a change in your life, to really stop what you're doing and go where God's called you to go, to reach into a healthy lifestyle and to be able to recover from your bad choice? Was there one turning moment that you might share with us that was revolutionary, that would help someone out there who's maybe contemplating? And we're not talking about just alcohol abuse. Like you said, it could be anything. It could be a shopping abuse. It could be a food abuse. It could be a sexual abuse. There's all sorts of ways that we like to, maybe it's binge watching something, or just, a spiritual abuse that we're allowing to come into our lives. And is there something that finally turned the corner for you that you could share that might encourage someone to make that decision to really take that change tonight?
That's a great question. You said so many wonderful and true things. One of the biggest issues now is scrolling, addicted to scrolling, because it's just a distraction from how we really feel. It's a distraction not to feel, actually, just to numb yourselves. So all of those things, they look different on the outside, but the reason for doing them is the same thing. And that thing will eventually can turn into more. If nothing else, say you never have an addiction, that's awesome, but you never live to your full potential either, unless we deal with all of these issues. I had many rock bottoms that you would think would be rock bottoms. There were many things that would have been like, hello, get your act together, but at the end, it was just that I knew I wasn't going to make it any longer. I'd almost died 3 times. I will tell you this. So I made that promise to God. After that, he gave me all of these visions of exactly what my life was going to look like, and then he gave me a dream that ended up becoming a book for young girls. And when I first realized it was a book, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is good. I'm writing a book and it's good. And then the next thought was, what are you going to do with it? It's going to be just like your music and acting. You're going to get your heart broken again. You don't know anybody. You don't have any money, blah, blah, blah. And finally, I recognized that voice. It was the enemy's voice. Mm-hmm. And I had been listening to it for so long, I thought it was my own. And the next voice was just right. So for the first time in my life, I just did what God said. I wrote this amazing book. Literally, I wrote it in like 2 months. Now, put that on after that, I redid the book many times. After years and years, it was published. But the story was the same. But anyway, I was on such, God brought hope back into my life. He brought hope and belief, and he was healing, and this was awesome. And he had a purpose for me again. He always did. I didn't believe it. After I got done writing it, I felt, I now know they call it writer's postpartum, but all I knew is I was on this natural, amazing high, and all of a sudden, it was just like somebody had thrown me off the top of a cloud and I hit my head on the concrete. I mean, I just felt like nothing. I felt everything was gone. And what did I do? I drank. I started drinking again. I'll start crying. And so for the next 2 weeks, I drank like 30 beers a day.
Wow.
And I remember crawling up my stairs that last day, like from work. I'm crawling up my stairs and just thinking, this is it. This is it. I'm done. And I remember just lying in the bed thinking, God, I don't even deserve it. I don't deserve to live. I don't know why I can't keep this promise because I want to. What's wrong? And then I had this picture, like where I knew it was the enemy. The enemy had some stronghold on me. He had some tie to me that he had gotten. At the time, I didn't know when he had gotten in. Now I see it everywhere from the beginning. I didn't know, but the enemy had a hold on me. And then I'm like, I don't deserve it. God, I don't deserve to live. And I felt this voice say, I deserve it. And that was the Holy Spirit. And that's why I say that purpose is the key to our breakthrough, because our purpose will cry out to us. Our purpose chases us down and will not let us go. And so after that, I crawled out of bed. I didn't know what was going to happen next. And then the next thing that happened, it is a whole other story, but it was like God was on one side of my apartment and the enemy was on the other. And they were fighting for me. And when you have witnessed something like that, you never see life the same, God the same, the enemy the same. And I remember the enemy just cackling, like, look, after all you showed her, look what she still did, And anyway, God saved me. Thank God. Thank Jesus. And I feel like God's angels ministered to me for a while after that. I don't know how long. And God said, everything I showed you is true, but it's going to take time and you cannot go backwards. Every time something goes wrong, every time, you cannot do that. I have to know I can trust you. Mm-hmm. And it's true, especially as people in the entertainment industry, women in general, we can get on those emotional roller coasters where we're up when things are good and bad when things are good. When the guy calls, we're excited. When he does, we're like depressed. We just can't be like that. We have to have our faith and our foundation rooted. We have to, I say, having a intimate relationship with God, as well as understanding yourself and your behaviors and your tendencies. That is where your strength comes from. Mm-hmm. You have to know, but we have to know ourselves. And so I hope that answered your question. So yeah, almost dying for the third time. And after God had given me that was it,
Sometimes we have to reach the bottom before we can start move up to the top. And so I love your vulnerability. I know that so many of us struggle over and over with the same type of thing where we'll put something aside, we will recover from something, and then somehow or another something comes into our lives and it sneaks back in there. And we tend to grasp a hold of our bad habits again and those things that have hindered us in the past. So our prayer tonight for everyone watching and that is having issues with some type of addiction or some type of habit that they're wanting to break is to make that decision, stick with it, rely on the power of Christ and the purpose that he's giving you, as Kirstin said, the worthiness. You are worthy. You are wonderfully and beautifully made, and God has a purpose and a plan for you in your life, and he wants to fulfill that more than anything else. He is our good Father. He is not one who will turn our back on us, who points a finger at us or makes us feel guilty. He's one that has outstretched arms constantly of his forgiveness is there for us. So that's the difference. in what we believe as Christians working in the industry, even with our own career. Sometimes we make those poor decisions in our career because of various reasons. I often remember when I was working full time as a Screen Actors Guild actress in Hollywood, my agent looked across the table from me when I was signing a contract with him to be part of his talent agency. He said, "Is there anything you don't want to do?" And so I would outline this several things that I didn't want to do. I wouldn't do nudity. I didn't want to do commercials that had to do with cigarettes or hard liquor. I didn't want to do political commercials. I didn't feel that was my place. And so I had 3 or 4 things there that I outlined for him. And he respected me because I had made those decisions. And I think, though, that sometimes we as actors, writers, and producers in the industry that live sometimes day to day because of the roller coaster finances that we have to deal with. Sometimes we have a job, sometimes we don't. We have to be strong in our choices. God calls us to be an example of who He is on this earth. And so if we're falling constantly, we cannot be that example that God has called us to be. And sure enough, I believe that I've always told actors and writers, producers coming to Hollywood to make those decisions before they're signing those contracts. You have to make those decisions and stick to them, because it will always happen. You will be late on your car payment. You will be late on your mortgage or your rent payment. There will something come up into your life that will tempt you in making and compromising on those choices. And that God will respect you if you don't make those choices in the wrong direction. I believe He will reward you. But you have to know what those choices are and be strong in them before you get in that situation. So
Oh, yeah.
write them down, write those things down, review them. And secondly, of course, and primarily, we have to stay engaged with Him. We have to be in the Word. We have to memorize the Word. We have to be in prayer. And we need then also support around us. Support people are so important in our lives. If you don't have someone you can call on, someone you can reach out to and say, "Hey, I'm struggling today. Please pray for me." You don't have to go into great detail with them, but they're there for you. And that's one of the things I love about the Hollywood Prayer Network, is that each one of you are able to go there, and they have people lined up to pray for those of us working in the industry, for support, for prayer as we need it, on our own time frame, on our own schedules. And that is set up because we believe in prayer, and we believe that engagement with God is the single most important thing that will help you turn that corner and stick to what you've chosen, which is God's way and His provision and protection for you in your life. So as we're winding things up, some of us have some questions that we may have. Many of you, again, may want to just write those in the chat. I'll be happy to share those if you don't want to personally come on and share that question. I'll be happy to just pose that out for Kirstin. Many of you may have a question or something that you've been dealing with, something that's come to mind that she can help you with tonight. And so we'll take a few of those questions now. Is there someone who might like to pop on real fast with a question?
Please ask away. I find that I was talking about the other day that I think Christians or faith-filled people, not in this incident per se, but in general, have a harder time asking for help and even going through programs, because we're supposed to have it together. We got God. Doesn't that make everything right? I had God the whole time. I was a Christian. I prayed. I was in church, but I still had these things, so I want to take that stigma off, because God wants us operating in our fullest potential, whether it's a thought that would drive you crazy or, you know, like I said, does not have to be an addiction. I mean, my thoughts alone would have driven me crazy if I had to become the bouncer of my brain. I still have to do that every day. Negative thoughts just want to climb in there. So anyone have any questions? Somebody has to. Yes.
Estelle, I see a hand.
Thank you, Kirstin, so much for sharing your story, your testimony. Several things stuck out to me. I don't struggle with, the alcohol or anything, but I do struggle with remembering. You said something about spiritual warfare. There's dreams and there's goals that I feel the Lord wants me to be involved in, but the spiritual warfare piece, I so appreciate you hearing it. And you're right, that's not something we hear a lot about in our circles and strongholds. So I just appreciate you saying that and highlighting how the truth, you mentioned about the truth. What is your truth? And the enemy's, the lies the enemy makes you believe it can become your truth. That's powerful. That was powerful.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it's very true, but thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, I went to church my entire life. I had never heard about spiritual warfare ever. That's crazy. It sets us up for not conquering the battles, you know? The enemy's been after us since we were born. But I didn't realize that, I didn't know that until I broke free from everything. And let me tell you, 3 weeks, was it 3 weeks or 3 months? I'm not sure, but I think it was about 3 weeks, 3 months, not more than 3 months. All hell broke loose in my life. And this time it was none of my doing. It was before I had contributed to some of the problems. I opened doors, but I mean, it was, I'll share with you another day if we talk, or we talk about it in the workshop. But literally, if I hadn't been through that experience, now my eyes are so open, Estella. And anytime I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I remember how hard the enemy fought. And I'm not giving him another win. I am not giving, he won some battles. He's not winning them, but he fights and he does it so, well, he's a pro. So yeah, spiritual warfare is a big, and it's not about, I always say we have to become aware of it. Being aware of it is armor. It is our armor, being aware of it. But our focus has to always be on God. Because I think the problem that churches have is that it's either completely avoided or people put too much emphasis on it. And it's neither. Our focus on God, but we have to be aware of it because it makes us stronger and it makes us prepared for the battle because we're in one. Yes. And you mentioned going to sleep. You mentioned sleeping. I don't always do this, and yet I know I'm supposed to. Before you go to sleep, I put my armor on in the morning, our spiritual armor, put it on before you go to bed as well, and ask for that protection as you sleep. And what we do, 30 minutes prior to before we go to bed matters, because our dreams and our sleep and all of that. So I hope that helps you, and thank you.
So good, so good. And you're so right. Again, it goes back to our mind and where our mind is and what the enemy is telling us, and what we're believing because of what we're listening to. I often tell women, when you're depressed, when you're struggling with something, put praise music on. Get your ears tuned in to glorifying God. And when we glorify him, he opens our thoughts waves. He opens us up to new positive things in our lives that can change and turn the corner on us. So get something in your ears. Don't, the dung, 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 dung constantly. We could have that going constantly, that whole beat. Research even tells us that classical music, beautiful classical music, actually enhances our lives. It makes us smarter. They've done studies where they've done classical music playing in the background of students, and that they've proven that their studies and their focus improves. So in our world of media clutter today, where we've got TV on, our laptop in our hands, and our phone in our other hand, we've got to stop this clutter and start listening to God's voice and the encouragement of great praise music and great wisdom from the Father above. And sometimes just shutting everything off is good for us, just shut it all down and sit there and ponder. I love the word ponder. We don't use that word in our culture and our world much today because we're not doing it. But ponder, read a scripture, ponder on it, listen to some music, ponder on it, and let it sink into you. I guarantee you it's going to change the direction of your life. So we have a time for another question. Is there someone else out there tonight that would have another question that they would like to pose to Kirstin tonight? We'd love to get another one in. I know that several of you must have some questions out there.
I love your questions. So yes, feel free. And it's still, like I said, I used to sleep with headphones on when things were really bad, with headphones on, like blaring that praise music in my ears. So absolutely, music is powerful. I leave it on in my house when I go outside. Sometimes if I felt kind of down, I've heard great stories about it, but I'm like, it cannot hurt. So, but yes, bring on those questions. Anyone?
We'll give you a few more minutes. Kirstin, it's been so great to have you on with us tonight.
What a pleasure.
You tell us one more time where we might be able to get your information and become a part of this workshop that you're doing.
I'll put it in the chat as well. You can go to the Change Your Story workshop.com, the Change Your Story workshop.com, and you can use the promo code, although give me about 10 minutes when we get out to do this. Use the word influence, INFLUENCE, for a 25%. It's already discounted for that. We're doing a fall forward special, and you can still add this discount with that. So it would be very cheap, 25% off. And like again, it starts this Saturday. There's about 9 people in it, and never more than 20, usually 15 or less. And so yeah, would love to have you join it. It is all interactive. You share what you're looking forward to gaining. And community is a huge thing in it. It's amazing how God just puts together the right groups.
Absolutely. So blessed to have you share that with us and make that opportunity. I know you also have a vibrant Instagram account and Facebook account. Can you share those candles with us as well? Because I know, put tips on that from time to time, encouragement, and we would love to be able to follow you as well.
Thank you. Help me make it more vibrant, ladies. It's one of those things I so don't like to do. I cannot wait until I can hire a great marketer to do that all for me. But till then, I do post and try to do substantial good things that will actually benefit. So yes, please. I'll also put my other website, KirstinLeigh.com, KirstinLeigh.com. Instagram is Kirstin Leigh 3. Actually, I have 3 accounts. That's one of them. And Facebook, I'm not sure what my professional one is, but if you go to my Instagram, it'll be able to take you there.
I have it down that it's Kirstin Leigh Official, and Leigh is spelled Leigh, by the way, not Lee. Some people I know, I always have to say my name has an E on the end. I'm Cookie, but it's Kirstin, Leigh, Leigh, official is your Facebook account.
You're right. I sent her my links. Yes, but I don't have them myself. Yeah, and it's Kirstin. That's a lot of this spelled too. So yes, the Change Your Story workshop.com, KirstinLeigh.com, Kirstin Leigh Official.
Great.
Or Facebook, Kirstin Leigh 3. But yeah, and I don't want anyone to miss their breakthrough. So if there is something you need, if there's a reason, maybe if I know finances are crazy right now, if you, whatever it is, don't let anything stop you from reaching out. If you feel that something I shared touched something in you. And yeah, the testimonies, you can read a lot of testimonies. You can see some video testimonies on the workshop site. It's everything from, one lady said, I got my dream back. That's huge to me, you know, that she got her dream back. Other people have broken free from alcohol addictions that have been through counseling. Other people, one guy said he had been through therapy after therapy and counseling and rehab. He said, Kirstin, I never had the tools that it takes. I never had these tools. And spiritual warfare was a big one too. But in general, you know, even the acting things that I incorporate. So if anything sounds like it could help, please reach out.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'd like to remind our listeners and viewers as well that this webinar will be put on our Influence Women YouTube channel. So if you want to review it again, or if you know someone else that you think it would bless and encourage their lives, to please check that out. It'll be put up here probably within a few weeks, where we'll have it edited and put up on our Influence Women YouTube channel. Also, I want to remind viewers that I have a great devotional out there. Devotional called Hope, the number 4. Today, stay connected to God in a distracted culture, because I want to encourage you to be in the Word at least 4 or more times a week. Research tells us that when you are reading your Bible, engaged with God 4 or more times a week, it will make a huge difference. It will make such a difference that people will see a change in you and know that there's something different about you. So I encourage you to be in the Word at least 4 or more times a week. The research even showed that when you're only reading your Bible and engaged with God 1 to 3 times a week, you will make no different choices or changes any different from someone who never reads the Bible. So I encourage you to get in the Word.
So interesting. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. That's so interesting. I want to give a shout out too, because there's a couple people on here that have taken the workshop. Angela has taken the workshop. She's actually under Joan's name now. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure there's a reason for that. But Joan actually took it. Joan and Angela took it. Angela actually took it twice, and she is a living, walking, breathing, amazing testimony on fire for God, a woman. She was on fire for God before, but her life is literally, I get excited every time I hear from her when she's amazing. So
wonderful, wonderful. Well, we know that God has has great plans for each and every one of you. As Influence Women, we know that your career matters from a professional point of view. We love these webinars that can teach you things from an educational point of view, but we also know that it is the whole woman that makes the difference from a spiritual point of view, a physical point of view, and from a mind, body, and spiritual point of view, the three areas of our lives and who we are that make us up. So Kirstin, again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you each and every one of you who have joined us tonight. I encourage others to follow us at influencewomen.org. If you know others that work in the industry, encourage them, please, to join us. We are a community of women who want to see our media changed in our screens. We have 7 chapter groups now around the United States, in Dallas, Hollywood, Houston, Atlanta, down in the OC of California, Baton Rouge, and Nashville. So join one of our events. You can see the many of them there. Join us for the next Influence webinar. Be watching for that on our website. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we'll see you. Bye.
thank you. Amazing, everybody. Thank you so much. And Kathleen, what you're doing is just beyond incredible. So keep shining. The Influence promo code will work in 5 minutes. So hopefully I'll see some of you Saturday.
Wonderful. Good night, everyone. Thanks for being with us.
Bless.
Thank you.